morning on the Super Morning Show. Now, I don't know how best to describe him, so I'll let him describe himself. But here's what we know. Professor Noel studied at Oxford, right? Yes, yeah, among other institutions. You, you actually helped to buy and sell players for Manchester United.
Yes.
Yes.
No, indeed, that's the best team in the world.
Oh, whatever, Winston.
Only that you know.
Yes, please. Us Swansea team that wrote the SEMA syllabus.
Yes.
Right, right. And of course, as you've advised several companies across the world, from Shell to Rolls-Royce to General Electric to a lecture at one of the highest ranked universities in the world, University of Nottingham.
Yes, it's a business school. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And what I've just described, hasn't it?
Yes, it has been. I think it's trying to do different things. Service. It was an interesting time for me because I spent almost all my time at University of Ghana doing yes, and then I was also NUC's coordinating secretary at the time. So quite interestingly, those up to today. So I got into plant pool and was put in charge of costing. To pass the examination is another story altogether. But I moved on from plant pool to British Petroleum, as it then was BP. At I realized that finance and strategy don't gel together at all in those days. And so I decided to. And
So you're a Chevening scholar?
yes, I'm a Chevening scholar. And the chain of the aluminum industry in Ghana. That is everything that I do is strategic decision processes.
So you married
Accounting and strategy. That's so then financial advisory services or their deal advisory service as they will now call it. Moved on to work at Oxford University for a while. So with physical present,
Right.
but my contract ended. In fact, I resigned more formally and retained a position there. So whilst I was at Oxford, I flew in every Saturday to teach executive MBA and executive programs. And so was cited their headquarters in Dublin for tax reasons.
Yes,
I mean,
of
insofar
course,
as I was
yeah.
concerned. So I was fortunate. They flew me over.
From Oxford to Dublin?
Yes,
Wow.
I mean, and from my house to Terminal 1 was about 45-minute drive. I had an opportunity to both study and teach at Oxford University, which was one of the most eye-opening stuff for me. And my focus at Oxford, so.
Oh.
That is
That
that,
is
and
different.
my thesis was on. I was kind of arguing. If you remember, in the year 2000, there was a clamor forgiveness of debt in Africa because I said we do not owe any debt to be forgiven. You see, debt is an artifact of in post-colonial times. They don't go to colonial times and pre-colonial times. But slavery was firmly dutiable. So every ship that left Europe into Africa, what they carried, their customs duties, customs documents, everything that they carried through. So kind of was flipping between theology, which was some personal basis for slavery. Then also at Oxford was one of the joys of my life. It was a tough job because you know that at Oxford you don't normally, and you would have given them some material to look at before 72 hours before they meet you, they send you the material. You kind of gauge what they know, and you engineer a debate and a conversation between them. And if you are not prepared, kind of flip between academia and practice. So when I'm in practice, I call myself a reflective. I moved to SEMA sometime in 2008 and still retain some connection with Oxford because I still live in Oxford, and Oxford University never lets you go anyway. That is that. So I work with SEMA first as their head of accrediting programs across the world, and then moved on to become their director in America. I became the executive vice president for academics, and then later for research and curriculum across the world in 150 countries. And that's exciting for me, and it moved our curriculum into more practical aspect. We changed the structure. In more recent times was when COVID came, write examinations because of lockdown.
Yeah.
SEMA was the only one who got their students to write examination. A lot of the money that they would have lost in terms of that. So that's quite
Yeah.
with me. And I'm also looking at how to mentor early career world of practice. So that's and I get to do other things. I mean, I've met many different people. I mean, I've met Steve Jobs. I've met and everybody in the technology industries, and then in the financial sector. I'm talking about CEO, advisory panel, and other things, people like that. And it was great meeting people like that. Also, to say that during my university career, I mean, Professor Ben, I remember my first residence board meeting. He says, Noel, great ideas, but you don't know how this university works. That's how it works to get your stuff. Teacher I've ever had from
Really?
all my my this including at Oxford, I mean education in the Ghana
Olympics.
League, you know, and I mean, and then people kind of where I am now has been just standing on the shoulders of giants in order to recognizing that I have a heritage that I cherish, and then having a heritage that I cherish, moving.
One of the reasons why we were so excited to have this conversation is because there are too few, unfortunately, Ghanaians who gives you a certain perspective. Since you carry Ghana with you wherever you go, you know, and Africa with you wherever you go. So we should start from the economy. Yeah. Not so long ago, we had the budget read, but it was interesting because it introduced the concept of recovering from and assessing the need for some of these taxes. But we're keen to hear your view.
Okay. No one saw it coming, or very few people saw it coming, and it was one of the things we call a black swan. And so let's put it in that perspective. What COVID also did was to wreck economies. It was for governments to step up to the plate and protect lives and livelihood. Why do you protect my life if there's no livelihood? You know, so livelihood came into the picture. It became worse than it used to be, but it also shifted the criteria by which we measured to what I'm going to say. So the issue then is about recovery from that. Sure. And over there. In November, I came into Ghana. I felt very ill. I went into a cold. For the week after you met me at the Chartered Institute of Bankers Marketing Ghana event, I went. That's what I'll compare it to. And then when I came out of intensive care, we're very good. In fact, indeed, one professor friend of mine, when he looked at how this economy during COVID would have been like me in intensive care. Once I was moved from intensive care into the ward and outside of the ward, I couldn't start. That made me build up, and I'm still building up after that. So Ghana's economy, the ward. Now, as I see the current budget, it is as if you're moving from it fast, and whereas I have some sympathies to the fact that there has to be recovery. And if it is very ambitious, the impact on the economy might not yield. The policy objective is that when there's a narrative of growth and economic policy impact, two is that it might, in my view, and that's just one view, so we'll see what happens, then help. And so I wouldn't, if I were running the economy, and thank God I'm not, really. And that is where the issue of taxes come in. Okay. Winston, you want to say something?
Yes. So looking, you talked that the government, for instance, talks about the need to stimulate economic growth because of to stimulate this growth we talk about. So there's the coronavirus alleviation and revitalization enterprise support scheme medical center. And the president says what COVID-19 has shown us is that we need to build hospitals, because in all districts that do not have hospitals, additional regional hospitals in the Western region, for instance, and in those that the newly created regions. If you look at all of these, coupled than expected.
I think injecting funds into some momentum into them. And one of the things that I find slightly stressful with electorate. So you make a promise, and I'm not saying it's necessarily a bad promise. It's just that there are only four sources of funds that are available to us. We're either borrowing or sovereignty. That's okay.
Sure.
And thirdly, you are taxing people. Or fourthly, government itself has revenue from royalties, from dividends, and service the debt. I don't put too much emphasis on grants. No stories told, no excuses told, period. Because that affects the way in which the world looks at us and behaves toward our country. And many Ghanaians agreed with him, unfortunately, for I don't agree with him necessarily in terms of that. We'll go to then will be borrowing, but funded, and not only external borrowing, and others we get from our natural resources. Then we're learning to stand on our feet. In the current taxation is an area that you've got to be very careful about because tax on consumption, indirect taxes are one of the most regressive that you would have. And you see, when it comes to contributing to national development, you have to commit to an economist, go and run a hospital as if you're a doctor. So in a tax-based extra, I'll come back to that in the conversation. But then there is our fiscal space and so on. Okay. And that conversation is not being carried out. It's either too technical because of that, because we don't have the capacity to fund. We ought to go more slowly. If somebody can persuade me, I've been hit by COVID already, there's the fragility of confidence in the economy is such that you hit people with taxes, that confidence goes down, and everything takes place. Once confidence drops, a whole lot of
we'll come to, when it even comes to, we'll come to how we try to revive borrowing and eventually use taxes to pay that debt. Now, in the 2021 budget, we're looking at borrowing an additional 41 billion Ghana cedis. And so, around 15 billion. The challenge is the government would need money. But if you look at the budget also,
which is a drop in the ocean.
Great. And in the indicative period from 2021 to 2024, you see government indicating that they're going to be borrowing to construct more as a tax anticipation note to borrow more. And so you're telling us that, okay, I have this, as we have seen in Get Fund, for instance, and ESLA.
Yes, I think, well, my view is that anytime you're borrowing, you're making. But you see, when I hear debates about borrowing and if we have to go down that route, we ought to join we are living in abnormal times. See, when I was in intensive care, nobody expected me to work in a particular way. The economy must work in that way. And there has to be conversations. And indeed, coming in, I don't know whether it's her own idea, she's passing it as her own idea to get to use the more commercial borrowing from Africa at more realistic rates, etc. And that's lousy. But some conversation has started and we could move towards that particular direction. But what I'm driving at is that we've got to start looking at new ways in which the world can. This is something that we've got to build together. We've got to have an African position on that. We've got to have wider position to build several hospitals all at a go. Who is chasing basics? Okay. According to what would have. Because if where we are going to get the money from will be...
government says within 1 year of a start of construction, it should be completed. And that is costing...
I'm already taking away so much from our conversation so far. We're talking to Professor Noel Tagoe. He's an educator. We're getting some education from him today. Already, look, I've picked up two important things. First one is, who's chasing us? Right? Who's chasing up is? Is this a recovery? Are we going to stimulate our economy by taxing it? If it's an indirect tax, Professor Tagoe, we'll talk a bit about the employment situation as well as it connects to the economy. What does he think of Ghana's approach?
The relative who's always late. The brother who's always on the phone.
Hello, let me call you right back.
The niece who's allergic to... We all know one, but meals wouldn't be the same without them. Savor moments together with Coca-Cola.
It's time to meet again in the magical megacity. Have a safe journey to Istanbul with Turkish Airlines. Book your TurkishAirlines.com. Turkish Airlines. Widen your world.
Heat, madam.
I'm bringing you my black traveling bag. Chanu neat. Now one blue kakra. Now medical trust selfie will airport.
Get your passport and luggage ready for the Fetworks. Win a trip for two to Dubai every week. You can also win instant prizes like airtime, hampers, and many more. Camel Buy and Fly 3. All COVID-19 safety protocols will be observed.
To your happiness, you need Summerlin cough syrup. Summerlin cough syrup will relieve you and your family from coughs, cold, and flu. Summerlin offers a whole range that provide relief for the entire family. Insist on your Summerlin in pharmacies and licensed chemical shops. Summerlin cough syrup from Danex Itin Starwin PLC. If symptoms persist after 48 hours, consult a physician.
To be the next IT guru in the world.
Wow. Then let's go study at IPMC College of Technology. All IPMC course with IPMC, you can surely be the next IT guru.
Oh, yeah?
Enroll to study at Ghana's best IT training school and learn any of our world-class undergrad program in information technology and more. With our enhanced learning approach, you have the option of studying online or in our lecture room facilities for classroom learning. Register today or call 055-555-2222. IPMC College of Technology, training the next generation of IT experts.
When the sun is up, the interior is cool. What roof are you using?
They use Ico roofing shingles from Interface Limited. Long-lasting and beautiful.
With materials for the building and construction industry in Ghana. Call us on 0274-999999 or visit our website at
www.
To change this television.
I know.
And you know the kids are anticipating. Something new from this Easter will be fine.
Anyway, I understand.
Are you sure?
Okay, darling, it's okay.
Grab your quality electronic and home appliances from Samsung on a great discount. Times has changed. Hurry up and go grab your new Samsung UHD 4K Smart TV. Starting at just 3,599 Ghana cedis. QLED 8K durable top-mounted freezer, soundbars, and many more. Enjoy your discount on any pick. Samsung Easter promo.
And all the laughter and fun you can imagine. Don't miss the Super Morning Show on Joy 99.7 FM. It's the best breakfast show in town.
I am a mountain.
Winston, have you heard the word mumpsimus before?
No.
Mumpsimus.
No.
Mumpsimus. It's a noun. It refers to a person who willfully adheres. Because if we could ever get someone who is the opposite of a mumpsimus, it's our guest today, Prof. about Ghana. And we've started off with the economy, already picked his thoughts on taxation. Let's talk. You can make free instant money transfers, free mobile money transfers up to 100 Ghana cedis every day. You can pay bills, buy airtime, make payments, all with your after ones. Remember to sanitize and wash your hands after the use of any e-banking device. ABSA cares. So stay safe. For inquiries, call
television program on a flat screen HD TV. Did you know that you can get it in clearer and brighter high definition quality, which is 5 the Philly experience on your HD TV like never before? Visit www.hdplus.com.gh or call 0242439872 for more details.
Right, now their ban has automatic data hold and auto power off features, plus a backlight LCD display, and you can set an alarm. Available. If you want to buy in bulk, just call our friends at Kingdom Books and Stationery on 050-140-1050 or 024 Junction.
Well, so you know cities that don't sleep, right, Kojo? You know the cities that don't sleep.
Yes, you made Takrady a city that doesn't sleep.
Well, the heartbeat of South Africa, built by dreams and ambition, the city will invite you to experience its rich history. But Joburg is not only history, it's Amapiano, and it's the richest square. Shop and dance, then do it all over again. You can revel in the high life in Joburg for 5 nights from as little as 8,200, including flights, transfers, and meals. And more deals, visit www.southafrica.net. South Africa, come journey with us. All right, Kojo, so let's get it. So my understanding is that we should slow down the recovery process, right?
Yes, I think we should think, if you like, a linear curve in terms of growth. Okay, let me shift our mind to what I call nothing is happening, and then when it reaches a critical inflection point, it shoots up. Mentors, because it's a word that invites some ridicule, but in Ghana, I think to do things. So many people would have heard from, for example, me saying that if he or she would improve what they had the previous day by 1%, at the end, that's simply applying the laws of exponential growth. And what that means is that the key thing is discipline. Trying to do 10,000, 500 today. Let me build the basis of it and let it grow. That is what the time horizon is. You get the same recovery. One will be very hurtful, and one will not be as hurtful. Everybody in the economy enjoying the fruits of it. Others will not get us into the same situation. So that is how come
about indirect taxes, taxing consumption being regressive. And we should look at other means of an intensive care, and a lot of things must change. We shouldn't think so much about how much we're borrowing, particularly the debt to GDP ratio. And if there's ever
of measuring economic performance has been questioned, and rightly so, in terms of the economics of it. So, right way in it doesn't register as GDP. If I produce cigarettes that makes people ill, and therefore now debt to GDP ratio is debt is the numerator, GDP is the denominator. So first of all, I mean, if we don't pay, we don't pay. If we can't pay, we can't pay. Everybody suffers. You have to take haircuts and things like that. Since from the crisis in 1980, the liquidity crisis coming out of when you print money, we used to call it seigniorage, and they'll tell you it is not a good thing to do. Pushing money into the economy and hoping that we'll stimulate the economy through putting in the money will pick up in such a way that it will rebalance. So these things don't matter. At the end of the day, it's people that matter. Your statistics has nothing the time to go through it, but let's do it.
I'm thinking about something you said earlier. You asked the question, who is chasing it? Struck me. If what happened to you had happened to you in Zabzuguta, in that sense, would you not say that then something is indeed chasing us as a nation, where we really ought to be hurrying up? It would, if it happened to you in the UK, anywhere in the UK, you would have the best care.
You can't afford the kind of hospitals. I mean, so what my doctors explain, quaternary care. So it's beyond tertiary. And no one's, in strategic location, so others move up now. We utilize the personnel that we have now and so on. I mean, there was a debate that I had with people. Who would you go to? The one that is fully equipped with buildings, or the one that is not equipped? Cool for your kid. The best equipment, the best places, but without nurses, cotomies, but to stretch the point in terms of an argument. And it is just that. I think that part of it, and the way, most of them are my friends, and then, of course, General Mosquito was my classmate.
Really?
The programs we announce are dictated not by the economic cycle, but by the political cycle. So why on earth should we build that now? Who are going to be there? The culture of excellence in medical delivery, that is that, but an integrated approach towards that. And that is what will be more lasting.
Great. So quick one, and being managed well. And I'll add my question quickly to this and say, should we consider?
I think whether debt levels are managed very well or not, it depends on what you do with it. I mean, if I borrow ability to earn much more money, then that's good. But I have to know where to borrow, what kind of interest. Then you create inflationary pressure over there. But if you print and it but my respected friend Ernest Addison
to clean up and how it was handled. There's been concerns from many who believe this could have been done.
And I think So I speak to two groups of people. Those who believe that I don't defend any position that I've had in terms of policy, what I could have done better. And so I think when we talk about it could be done better, it is not because of to the fact that I thought that it was treated more as a technical issue. I mean, I have no doubt that we all test very badly and multiply COVID into it, and we wouldn't be sitting down having this conversation. What I found quite interesting was the way in which it was done. I thought that, so let me give an example, an analogy. So you are an organization, but if you cut costs, you might hurt your ability to generate revenue in future. And so, look, I mean, if you read Kennedy's speech, he said that we choose to go to the moon not because it is easy, but precisely because it is difficult, and in terms of that. And that is one of the things I've learned. So I will not go for I have no doubt about that. I've interacted with enough people in Ghana who know what to do that, you know. So I'm not sure whether that's a satisfactory answer to Ghanaians or policymakers.
Think about the banking crisis. The one question that comes to my mind is, could it happen again? Based on how they handled it.
Collective amnesia for that to happen again. But with time, it could happen again if the regulatory and regulators have to keep pace with that. And I think what most regulators do and most policy managers do is that most of them are regulating the past, not the future. And I think regulators should move towards regulating. But if you are going to regulate the future, then you've got to understand that you don't kill things. You find a way. But I can sit here and say that, you know. But by the way, I have managed things like that. I give you just an example. They wanted to set up the Chinese equivalent of SIM. And so they approached us to help them. Now that would, and we got to know why they wanted to do that. There's a bit of nationalism there and things like that. But my solution was to, and it's just, I don't think there's ever any problem that cannot be solved. You have no idea the amount of solutions that are coming. Even, I mean, if you think about computers, are not intractable. It is the will to begin to think through them and to tackle the difficult things and leave the easier bits for others to do, you know. It is where it is at for me. And for Ghana, let's say, we choose to tackle the difficult problems and not run away from them. We cannot postpone it. We need not postpone it. And we have the capacity to.
Because you are somebody who actually has worked in talent management, if you will, for many corporations. Ghana has an unemployment problem. To solve it anyway, how do you assess our attempts?
Okay, so I think that we have enough data with, we know how many people go to primary school and how many people finish primary school. We know from there how many people go into JHS. That means 2 are falling out. You know that these 2 are coming into the employment market and other things, picking them up as paying that. That's not this, and you can do that all the way through the education. Many of them are there. How many of them are being picked up in the different? How many people are coming each year into the employment market, potential employment? And then the second thing to do is to combine it with data from the likes of SNIT, except the informal economy. I think that where we lack a lot of data is the informal economy. For me, and by the way, I mean, my philosophy on education is that in every situation I kind of learn something. To me was that we are not going to be here. None of us is here for about 4 years. We move on. So we have not discovered it. I just discovered it on this trip and a previous trip that is there. And when I talk to them, for example, it shouldn't be one that you lump something at the end of the month or at the end of the year. The second thing that they said is that it shouldn't take my time. Because my time is in selling the thing. That enables us to pay taxes. That is linked with our teams. It's linked with our stuff like that. And really, is that rocket science? And is that and talk to those people. You know, one of the things you realize at Oxford University is that if you're called an ordinary student, you know the reason why we do that? Because you always learn. You don't care who you learn from. You know, and I think our policy is where the people are. And so that is where you get the data. That's where you engage with them. And do pilot me would look like. We are sitting on $2 billion of conversations about tax and other things will come there. So I have very little patience when we have to look at And I've canvassed one. I mean, others might have other views, and we need to come together. If I'm taxing somebody who is standing on the road and selling, what is I'm taxed very highly in the United Kingdom, but I know that there are good roads, there are good hospitals. I know comes into my house. What is the stake of these guys over there? You know, Manhattan side road hustlers who are hustling, but those people make it in life. And they point out to people who have, whether by design, by choice, or by compulsion, they have found themselves where they moved off from the streets, and he buys wholesale and puts people on the streets. I've got people who are selling coconuts, they have places still, and so on. And some of them are lending money out to people and so on and so forth. Wow. Those data from just data into insight, because through insight that we're able to make policy and act on that.
Just before we move on from employment, this thing has been niggling. We keep talking about, we keep hearing, Senor Hossi has some views on that that became quite popular. And then,
so many things that education is able to do. I think Senyor's position was perspective. The universities came out to speak. I was slightly disappointed by what the university said because it trains good citizens, and that's a key. That's a huge, so that you don't just go and a politician says something and then you're just jumping and following them. You've got to have analytic capability of the nation. And it should bridge the employability gap, what I call the employability gap. So this is what I did, access to those questions. So I went to employers and asked them, what are the challenges that you face? The whole business enterprise is to overcome challenges for a profit. That's all. Professionals. Mind you, it was in finance.
Yeah.
Of your finance professionals to address those challenges. Because you addressed and said, do you need to perform at the level required to address the challenges? Because you need skills for that, other people. And so you develop competency frameworks to determine what kind of competencies are there. And then your learning system in order to be able to acquire the competencies to perform at the level that is required to meet the employability issues and make your people fit for that. But you see, our education is simply, I learn a lot of things just in case I'll need them. And use mental building blocks of knowledge that you need to have, which endure. So you move perishability. And therefore, one of the things that our education system must learn to do is learn to get people to seek for new kind of knowledge and things like that. And then you relearn something new. And it is the way in which it goes. That, for me, is how I conceive of education.
You were at CIMA in 2006, Vice President.
Yes, I was executive vice.
Right, okay. Now, at that time, CIMA did a study. In fact, you discovered that about more than 80% of young people require significant training before being put to work, according to findings. A lady called Alison Arnaud, who I think was a principal of Tower Hamlets College. How different is that from what Legon said that you disagreed with?
No, I think that so that is where the process that I described in looking at the challenges. And so I don't say that universities alone should do the stuff. They should partner with employers. And once they realize that a value conversation is taking place, then they'll give you things struck me. One is that people held thefts that they thought vetoes. Because if you have a veto, you will not listen. If you have voices around the table, you'll be forced to listen. I've listened to various media in Ghana and also various debates. We focus on what has happened. And that's interesting. After a while, I lose interest in that. So you must move from, if you like, the descriptive to what. Now, when you ask why it has happened, then you are moving, if you like, from the descriptive to that I think will happen if we don't do anything about it, if things follow their natural course. And so you move into a predictive mode. In terms of the debate on education and so on, we haven't moved into...
Professor Noel Tagoe, he's taught in the University of Dundee, University of Oxford. He's current.
I didn't know that.
You didn't know that?
You're an alumnus of...
I lived down the road in Wallerton for...
5 students, so I will nominate you as an ambassador.
Certainly, we'll talk about that, and I look forward to it. Option on COVID-19 generally, and the disruption that came with it, and we'll also pick his thoughts on motive.
The relative who's always late. The brother who's always on the phone.
Hello, let me call you right back.
The Nola. We all know one, but meals wouldn't be the same without them. Savor moments together with Coca-Cola.
Oh, this time it is Milcom Easter Sale promo. Surprise your family, friends, and loved ones during this season of Milcom Shop nationwide. Promo starts from the 22nd of March, 2021.
Oops, Easter is here again. Everyone is happily walking into electronics and appliances. We are offering simply the best from Samsung, Nasco, Media, Toshiba, and more at fantastic prices on a good discount. For your family, D8K, Nasco LED TV, Nasco twin top washing machine, gas cooker, Toshiba 4 burners, Media tape, Nasco, Media, Toshiba, and more. Electroland exciting Easter promotion.
DSTV has millions. Girl, I go take you to Lagos. Girl, I go take you to Ghana. Girl, I go take you to Tema.
He's been watching Aquaba Magic on DSTV only from 48 Ghana cedis a month. DSTV Ghana, it's your moment.
8 people are feared dead following a head-on collision of 2 buses on the Kintam,
which occurred Tuesday dawn at Chichibure on the Accra-Kumasi Highway. 29 people.
On all multimedia networks, Crushed, coming soon.
Super Morning Show. Joy 99. Joy 99.7 FM. Coffee in your cup and
wish we had started this at about 7:30 because there's so much we want to talk to him about, and it's a fascinating conversation, isn't it? From now, you will be required to present a valid national ID card anytime you visit a Momo agent to perform a transaction. So note, just Momo it everywhere you go.
So I go Ghana, and I like that when I say I go Ghana.
I mean,
high school, a technical and vocational training institute. And if you operate a music school, a media school, or any other school below the tertiary level, then please know 3. You need to acquire a license from the National Schools Inspectorate Authority in order to operate in Ghana. The National Schools Inspectorate Authority, formerly the National, if you intend to establish a pre-tertiary school in Ghana, be it public, private, or faith-based, you must first seek approval from an assistant. You still need to acquire a license from NASIA to continue operating per Act 1023. Visit 318 or 0545 732688 or email info.
Listen, your text messages keep coming through, so many of them coming up, and we're going to read a few of them as soon as we get the opportunity. Keep them. It's in your best interest to survive. Our guest, Professor Noel Tagoe, the fields of accounting and strategy, and he's advised many of the biggest companies in the world. Right, he's on the speed dial. Which ones does he not know, I wonder? But today, he's our guest here on the Super Morning Show, and we're learning a lot. Right, now, before the break, we talked a bit about... Currently, Ghanaians are a bit worried. The lights are going off again, you know. The politicians can't decide whether to call it doomsday or stuff is outmoded. I'm thinking, could this have been avoided?
Well, I mean, if I say it's to be seen. Because I work in the area of disruption. Let me give you two kind of examples. The first thing I'll say is this, that people should invest. We've got to invest in foresight capabilities so that you see sooner and act faster. If you do that, this would not happen. We'll us to be able to do that. I just mentioned, those who know it, know it. We have a technology called digital twinning. What would I call it? Whatever is happening to a machine, whether in a remote place or not, there are sensors and airplanes, etc. So one of my clients, for example, that produces airline, and somewhere in the middle of the flight, they could tell right in their plane. You know, fuel is a key area of aviation, and so they could then things that are needed, and then to be able to do a maintenance turnaround of inner foresight capabilities. That's what we've got to do. So if you then come and tell me that, you know, so I have a problem there. So that's where I'll not be able to speak to the issues They could have. They should have invested in seeing earlier.
Or maybe they could, but they just couldn't act faster due to resource constraints.
Exactly, resource constraints.
We've heard the present government accuse the previous government of, investing in was that they were going to involve the private sector in energy distribution. So we saw PDS. How did that?
I was hoping that I would avoid that. So let me just speak much more in general terms. My introduction to another places like that. I think the first thing that you've got to do is to be able to have capacity. And I mean, for me, it doesn't mean anything more than it means that you're expecting the economy to grow at a level that use overcapacity, and there are ways in which you deal with it. But once you create feeding that capacity through the system that we have, so whether it's grid-co or not, that have been used to generate and distribute, and therefore to make sure that the cycle wastage through the system. I mean, I cannot talk about the technical side so much because you need electric, and therefore it halts some of these things, because at the end of the day, you need resources to do this. Government doesn't know what private sector owes and what private sector doesn't know. But let me end on a point where the private sector and sometimes in Africa, it is on terms that is beneficial to governments in dictatorial regimes, balance between the two.
Prof makes a point about having foresight capability, and he thinks that point in time had complained about obsolete equipment.
Yes.
But we know also that whether all the amounts they need in a year is what would go into us paying for through the tariffs. So in the past, created for the Ghanaian economy. At the time that you're going through COVID-19 and you want to...
it's very inconveniencing to go through. And so this is... both for business, but also much more to reacquaint myself with the lovely food in Ghana. Even that, they try to keep it to a minimum, and all hands on deck, etc. So I think it is simply not a bit unhelpful to people over here. That's true. Every time, bring your A game to town. Don't bring your B game to town. We don't need that. Go and people would pardon you if you're going for excellence all the time. So if you have a zero, and that is, this one uncle of mine once was persuading me not to be. I mean, you always have a fallback situation. And said I was drunk at the time, and things like. But if you don't drink, they'll say somebody scores all the time, and he gets a sitter, open net, he doesn't score. They said, put the ball on the goal line, he won't score. And that is the kind of narrative that is
governance and corruption. I mean, that's a whole show on its own. But look, Ghana has gained an office of the special. We lost him too. How are we doing as a nation in the fight against corruption?
Some few things, not two things, but let me go straight to them. That helps no one at all. If you politicize it, then you have the thing. Then we should understand that our discourse and our narratives on corruption, to be careful in that. Now, there are two things to corruption. There's a perception of corruption, and there's a practice of corruption. Where there's a perception of corruption, be careful about that, because people's reputation and integrity are at stake. Don't accuse somebody of corruption allegation, because then when other people who are actually corrupt are accused, and when you talk about politicians now, that is one of the most vile things that can happen to a country. You see, once it's still built, one of the things I learned from my hospitalization, all my bills were about $10,000 US. And I was quite fortunate that I had friends who could have held on for me. Now, think about that if you do not possibly have $10,000 US because somebody takes. Think about the number of kids who are not being schooled properly. Think about the number of people who is corrupt in terms of that. And it doesn't matter whether you're NPP or go for the person, because the person can't talk about political persecution. In terms, your own person is of anti-corruption people is key. They have the power. In Ghana, we give the power without the skills that match up to it. I'll give you an example. The Ghana Banking College organized courses to make them aware that these are the kind of governance rules you have to follow. Then, so you give them what to do without how to do that. And I think so there has to be also the coordination in terms of that, and then, but absolutely zero tolerance for that. And we should not hail people who are corrupt and that we know are corrupt.
Some of it might be down to, what you've described, but I'm also thinking of the part of it which is just a failure to do something before they went to the office. And you subtract it from what they had at the end of their tenure.
Yeah.
And then you take that amount and deduct their salary from it.
If it's a gift, show us who gave us the gift and show us whether you paid gift tax on that before. And like you said, there are different types of math. Corruption is not on the accuser. It is on the person who has the thing to say, where did you get it from? And
very long time. We're going to get a little bit of an extension so that we can wrap up on a few of the key issues we haven't touched on. Okay, so we'll take a little.
Multi TV would like to notify the general public of some unscrupulous dealers offering unaccredited decoders as multi TV digger boxes, LMB, and decoder. Buy the accredited decoder to enjoy warranty, after sales support, and future upgrades. Multi TV will not be responsible for any problems arising from the purchase multi TV digger boxes. Remember, the only approved digger box is the quality advanced S2 decoder from Syndicated Capital. Is on sales at 150 Ghana cedis. Call 0 digger box at only 150 Ghana cedis. Multi TV, just chose.
The cousin that hogs all the food. The relative who...
Thank you. I'm allergic.
The work buddy that finishes the last of the Coca-Cola. We all know one, but meals wouldn't be the same without them. Savor moments together with Coca-Cola.
Morning Show! Welcome back to the Super Morning Show. And for most of the morning, we've been having a conversation with Professor Noel. And he's a thinker, He's a thinker, also a Ghanaian, thank goodness. So we have him here today and we're learning a lot from him. Prof. Tagoe, you worked at Manchester United for a while. You actually helped Alex Ferguson buy and sell footballers. What was that like?
Let's say that I work for a football club, one of the greatest football clubs in the world. And I think the whole body of talent. So most organizations, if you look at their financial reports or their annual reports, they say human being. And wherever there's something that is an expense, you try to cut it.
Yes.
Where there's something of value, you don't cut it. So what I decided to do was to try, on the balance sheet. And the only people who had value for NFL, others did it. So what I did was to do some work with football clubs. Other people contributed to that study. And therefore to develop, if you like, an econometric model that would perhaps in terms of advising whether they are paying too much for a player or not. And that, so the transfer money and then the amount of money that they are paid per week over that period of zero on the balance sheet. And if your services are traded in, it's amortized over the contract period. So let me balance sheet. And at the time that Beckham was sold to Real Madrid, he represents zero on the balance sheet, but sold for over 20 million. His value had been amortized to 98,000 pounds, so about 800,000 pounds. But he was into getting the value of a player is a couple of things, a number of things. This guy, Ronaldo, who sells shirts. I mean, I remember when he was bought for 100 million by Juve. You don't get the money back in 5 years, but with Ronaldo, it's in 5 months.
Wow.
So that's the kind of thing that you're talking about. So there's a commercial side of it. That's how it goes. And at the moment, it's crazy. Until COVID, valuation issues are still very interesting.
I mean, just a quick one, because look, I just reading this article. Because he's an English player, his cost will be higher.
Yeah.
We've seen that, with English players. We've seen about English players.
I think it's just a structural thing. We have rules where you have to have a certain number of English parliaments and other things like that. So you hang on to the English players because if you don't get the right number of English players, in business there are issues that relate to compliance and there are issues that relate to performance. That's the way in which you do it.
Let's bring this to Ghana because you keep reminding us you take Ghana with you in ball league and how it compares to what you saw there. I mean, what do you think it is about Ghana's league that
I think the professionalism in managing the clubs is a huge issue. I mean, you've got to have amateur sports. It's a professional thing. The technologies involved in that should keep up to pace. Have no clue about. I mean, they know everything about Barca and the rest. And by the way, this is only. And in one of the villages that we're passing through, there were kids in Barca shirts, quite huge in terms of that. But apart from that, I mean, what else is there not to like about Ghana football?
Black Stars? And goodness, what a dramatic life our national team has had, you know, from slapping coaches. Well, actually, we ended up in the World Cup, performed creditably, and then it started to get messy. We had airlifting money to them and all of that. I wonder what you think is happening to Ghanaian football right now, a situation.
So I'll choose based on attitude first. The person must have a winning mentality. The person must have enough network to bring people around them. You see, often, I mean, one of the things, and then later on, the guy who became England manager, and that was a huge help to Alex Ferguson and other people, and that now pervades in terms of the game. So you need the right coach, a foreign coach or not. In my view, can we perform? But I prefer a Ghanaian coach, and if we get a foreign coach.
In conversation, we've learned a lot. Now, Prof. Tagoe, this is how I'd like us to wrap up. If you had 1 minute to say something to the youth
of your life, the script of the narrative of your life yourself. Don't let anybody write it for you. Be ambitious. Have the ability to match your ambition. Humility, honesty, hard work, passionate, heartfelt. When all is said and done, as someone said, well done is better than well said. And that's
well, Professor Noel Tagoe, well done. Thank you so much for spending your morning with us. And
thank you very much.
You've certainly elevated our thinking. We hope you've enjoyed it. There's more to come on the Super Morning Show tomorrow. Stay with us for the duration. The Cosmopolitan Mix comes up next with Doreen Andor. So stay with
7 FM.
Oh, I am a helping hand. I am a hero. If anybody asks you who I am, it's far up in the sky. From that